Manchester! How are we doing? I know there's no live audience, a bit like question time last night. There's no live audience to give us the live applause, the feedback that we are so used to having in this room. Usually it's full of warmth and cheeriness and a lot of encouragement for everyone that's graduating today. But as I think everyone knows around this globe, we are in very, very uncertain times, and it's brilliant that we're even able to put on today. So, yes, as many of you know, Northcoders took the decision to go fully remote from Tuesday just gone, and the three project teams who will be presenting their final Northcoders projects today have been sort of battling with that adversity and adapting to this new situation, as we all have. And so, I mean, it's, you know, I can't wait to see these projects. I've heard that they're fantastic, and so much to everyone here. It means so much to the teams presenting. For those that have never seen a Northcoders graduation showcase, what actually happens during these presentations is these three teams will present their final projects. They have been at the Northcoders coding bootcamp for at least 12 weeks learning to code, and the last 2 weeks of which they have spent in their current teams building projects in technologies that we've not taught them. They have learnt new technologies and built new projects completely on their own without support from our tutors and the wider Northcoders team. The way the showcase works, we'll have a team present, and then you will have the opportunity to ask questions in the comments in the box below. Please, 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 it will mean so much to all of us if you could interact with us, let us know how you think they're doing, how well, you know, any thoughts on their ideas, and if you have any questions for them, please do type them, think about them in advance and type them in, and we will get them relayed and they can answer your questions live. Also, in a slight break from tradition, I'm going to introduce a new head of partnerships sort of between teams. He's got a message for you about our COVID-19 update. So one other thing I'm going to ask for you today. As I said, there's no live audience, and usually there's a lot of warmth and a lot of applause for each member and each team. Please clap at home or in the offices or wherever you are, because that love, that feeling will be felt over the waves, around the globe. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to our first team of this afternoon's showcase. They are called Recharge!
Thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We're Recharge. This is Sarah, Nick and Kirsty. And our project is a mobile application. It is designed to allow the user to access all of the electric car charging points based on their current location, along with things to do whilst their car is charging. Recharge also offers a journey planner feature which allows the user to find the optimum charging stations during their planned routes based on their car's effective range. Our inspiration for this app has come from our primary focus, which is sustainability. With current travel restrictions in place, we wanted to create a practical app that can be used to provide users with essential and efficient travel options. We decided to provide a places to visit feature to allow users to efficiently charge their vehicle, whether it be on day-to-day basis or on long journeys. I will now go through our recorded demonstration of our app, which we use a 95% new tech stack for. So here we have a user that's registering. We're going to go for Mercy, who's from the game Overwatch, if anyone's ever played it. It requires a full name, username, password, email, and the car's make and model. And then when you register, that posts to our back end, which you'll see in a second. There we go. So we're going to go for the Peugeot E208, and then we log in. So the login page, we follow through username for the account we just created and the password, and then we will be presented with an alert which we have to enable our location so that the app can find the charging points near you. And then this is the user homepage. So we have the light blue targets which indicate the charging locations near to your current location. We're in Manchester at the moment. So we also have a list along the bottom that can scroll with the names and addresses, and a nearby attractions button. So if we click on there, we can see amusements to do. So there's museums, ATMs, restaurants, a number of them in Manchester city centre, so there's quite a few here. So if we go back from there and then we go to plan a route, we can plan a route. So we'll start in Manchester where we are at the moment, and then we'll choose our destination as London, and we'll set it to have a full charge in our effective range. So once this loads, this will present a map of requests, which will give us our optimum charging stations from A to B. As you can see here, the reds are origin and destination, and the light blue is our charging location. So if we click on that, we then get places to go to whilst our car is charging. Again, there's maybe not as much things as Manchester city centre here, but yeah, so there we go. I'll pass you over to Kirsty, who's going to talk about the back end.
So for our backend, we decided to use Ruby for our programming language and Ruby on Rails for our framework. And we also hosted this on Heroku. This was to store our data for all our users and cars using PSQL. We were eager to learn a new language, and through research and spiking, once we got set up, we found the intuitive nature really good for simplifying repetitive tasks. And it was also great for our small time frame. And Ruby overall is a fun language to learn as it's readable and user-friendly.
Well, what framework we went for, we were going to be learning something new, but it's strictly and strongly typed, and its approach to object orientation is also quite different. We also made use of two external APIs, OpenChargeMap and Google Maps. And if we just go to the next screen, we can have a look at the route planner. I can explain a bit about how that works. So this particular route is actually, I believe it's from Newcastle to Plymouth. And to get this route and all the charge points, we actually have to make 5 separate requests across those two APIs. The first request we make is just to get the initial route, not taking into account charge points at all, and we get that from Google Directions. Then we have to map through the data we've got from that route, find how far along we can get in the route before the car needs to be charged, and then we use that point to make a request to open charge to find the nearest charge point. And in this particular route, we've had to do that 3 times. Once we've got all the charge points, we can make our final request, again to Google Directions, this time telling it that it's got these 3 waypoints that it needs to go through. And then we're able to present that to the user. So I'm going to pass you over to Sarah now, who's going to talk to you a bit about some of the challenges we've faced.
So, the challenges we faced, as you might have noticed from our tech stack, there is absolutely no JavaScript in there whatsoever, which is the language that we've been learning for the past 12 weeks. We understood that we were going to have many challenges, however, we didn't think that we would fall at the first hurdle, which was installation issues. So we had issues loading Rails and MySQL on Linux, and we were very aware that our app was quite front-end heavy and we needed to spend as much time as possible on Dart. So we made the decision to switch to PostgreSQL, which is a framework that we were familiar with, and we knew that it would be hosted easily with Heroku. Following that, we turned our attention to the front end, where we did lots of spiking and researching in tutorials and videos about Dart, in which they told us that it would be a very easy language to learn, especially coming from a JavaScript background. This wasn't quite the case. Although it looks very syntactically similar to JavaScript, it works very differently under the hood. We spent a lot of time going away, doing tutorials, and then we came back together and spent 2 entire days mob programming, making sure that we had the base knowledge of Dart down before we went on with the rest of our app. Because we were using 2 new languages, progress was slow, so our communication had to be absolutely on top notch. We had not 1 but 2 daily stand-ups. We did lots of programming. We had to understand where each person was, and at what point they were in order so that we could understand where we were going. We tried to keep our code as dry as possible, separate it out into components so it was readable for the other members of our team when we came to do extra work on different pages. And we also broke down everything on our Kanban board into tiny components so that we didn't get lost down a rabbit hole of new code. Having said that, though, we feel like we've achieved a lot. We've learned 2 new languages. We've learned those with many new frameworks, new APIs. We feel very comfortable with agile practices. We know that we can work really well as a team and support one another. And we've also managed to integrate loads of new tech and get it working together at the same time. So finally, I'm going to pass you back to Nick, who's going to tell us things that we would like to implement in the future.
Thank you. So yeah, one of the easiest things that we want to set up is a new route planner, this time for the locations around a charge point. And I say that's easy because it doesn't require any algorithmic complexity. It's just going to be one request, one origin, one destination. So that's the first thing I think we're going to be able to tick off. We haven't yet got authentication set up properly. So that's definitely something we need to get sorted before thinking about deployment. It is something we've looked into. It's absolutely doable. It's just in the 2 weeks we had, it's just not something we're able to get around to. And I think one thing that we're all keen to do is refactor our code a little, because at the start of the project, we understood a lot less about Dart than we did by the end of the project. And I think we got a much better idea of how to design it and how to organize it. And so we'd like to go back over some stuff and make that a bit cleaner. And then, as I say, go ahead to deployment. So we're ready for any questions.
Wow, well done, guys. That was not only a beautiful app, the design of your slides and the actual app are incredible. So brave. So brave. Ruby on Rails and Dart. Anything else? Flutter. Yeah, sorry, Dart, Flutter. Amazing. I think you've broken the comments section. I've never seen so many comments flying in. God, if I miss out your name, apologies, because so many people are saying amazing, 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 well done, brilliant execution. We've got Sophie Toland, love this idea, congratulations everyone. Norbs89, amazing idea. How far away from deployment do you think you are?
That's very tough to say. I suppose it depends how we organise ourselves over the next, over the coming week or two. It's, you have something to say, Sarah?
I would say if project phase had been 1 week longer, we would probably have gotten there, been here together full time. Because we're learning a new language, it was really important that we were all together at all times. It's going to be a new challenge to do remote working on this, but we love challenges, so yeah.
Okay, we've got a question here from Paula Wilson. Great presentation. Did you look into implementing any authentication for the user sign-in?
Yes, I think me and Kirsty both have something to say about this. Initially, we were looking at using bgript on the back end. It was just, with the way Rails is set up, it's normally used for a full MVC web app, and we were just using it for our RESTful API here. So it would have been doable, it just would have involved a bit more learning, and we just had to prioritize. We did also look into, doing some sort of hashing function ourselves on the front end. Again, doable, it was just a matter of what we actually had time to achieve. I don't know if you've got anything to...
Just on what you said, Nick, we tried to implement bcrypt into our back end, but because it needs the view from the MVC, it was taking a lot of time, so we had to just kind of strip that back and just get our main functionality done. But it's something it's a priority of ours to get implemented. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And we've got a question from Conway. With all the work you did on Dart Flutter, could I ask what the advantages you feel you got from those languages. So I guess let's just extend that to Dart with Flutter, and then Ruby and Ruby on Rails.
For Dart with Flutter, one of the main advantages is a lot of the styling is inbuilt into it, so there's not as much faffing around with CSS. While CSS is great, it is a bit more intuitive in terms of styling. Anything else to add? Oh, and also, it compiles down to both Android and iOS as part of its framework, as part of the language, which is great.
I'd also say with the fact that it compiles down, it's much faster than React Native, which was important for our app because we're making a lot of requests. We want it to be as quick as possible in terms of everything else. One thing with Dart was learning a bit more about typing, which, as you'll know, JavaScript is quite free when it comes to typing. Dart is not. You can cheat a bit. There is a dynamic type in Dart, but Flutter doesn't make much use of it, so we weren't really allowed to either. And with Ruby, it's just such a different looking language, and it's really interesting to just try and see what the parallels are and what the differences are. It helps put what we've learned already into context, as well as helping us learn new stuff, I think.
Brilliant. Conway, thank you for the question, and thanks for the Kaiser Chief reference as well. I think you've also got, you've blown Doug Hellowell, our new tutor's head off, so well done with that. And honestly, the comments, you'll be able to go and look at them yourself. Well done, everybody. Can we have a round of applause from everyone around the world that's tuning in? Well done, Recharge. Okay, whilst we switch over teams, I'm going to invite Josh, who's bravely stepped up to become the new head of partnerships here at Northcoders. Come in and let's get this door open. Josh, would you please come in and tell the partners about our COVID-19 update and what we're up to? And in the meantime, in the background, we'll swap the teams over.
Fantastic. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the introduction, Amal. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about how we're working with the wider North Coast community, but also business community, about how we can support people and continue operating as normally as possible. First of all, thank you so much for tuning in. It's so important in this time of angst and uncertainty that we celebrate each other's successes and achievements. So thank you for joining us for this. Thank you also for the kind words and support that we've seen, not just from the North Coast peers and students, but also from the interactions we've had with people on social media, in calls, and just generally, in our day-to-day actions that we would maybe normally take and are currently doing to help people out. We are currently in the midst of a once-in-a-generation event, and I'm sure we all know people who have been directly affected, be it through illness, redundancy, reduced hours, or perhaps entering what is an uncertain and ever-changing job market. As I'm sure you can see from this, Northcoders is still here, and we are actively supporting our students, graduates, Northcoders community, and also the wider business community in any way that we can. We've gone largely remote, so we are delivering many of our lectures and sprints online, and we've had a lot of success so far doing that. We've also gone completely remote on both our operations and partnership side, and I just wanted to say thank you to my team for doing such a fantastic job in doing that and being as understanding as they have been. We are currently talking very closely with a lot of the companies that we work with as hiring partners, but also generally businesses, about how they're finding what is an ever-changing situation and share any insight and knowledge that we've gained. We've interviewed and tested well over 1,000 people to join us in our bootcamp, and many of these have been remote, so we have a lot of insight that we can share in terms of doing technical tests, interviewing, and also onboarding people remotely, be it partly or entirely. So we're trying to share as much of this knowledge as we can to help business as usual remain any way it can. We are also sort of reaching out to these wider organizations and trying to use our expertise and experience that we've gained by doing training and onboarding with junior developers to help alleviate some of the strain that development teams may currently be feeling. I just want to say thank you obviously for joining us so much. If there is any way that we can work together, be it to hire our students or more just generally support each other in this time of need, then more than happy to talk and do whatever we can to hopefully alleviate some of the pain I'm sure we're all feeling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh, and we will be with you just in one tick with the new team. So just hold with us one thing. Actually, while I've got you, we're trying to make this the most viewed Northcoders graduation ever. We've already broken the record. We're at triple figures. But please, if you feel that anyone should be watching this that isn't, please share the link. Please get as many people to tune in as possible. And yeah, let's see how many viewers we can get. And we're getting a few more of the teams that are graduating today join us. So we have actually a few more applause than we just had a moment ago. So let us know when you're ready, guys, and we will kick off.
Microphone. This one. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for coming to our graduation.
Hold on one second. You need your introduction.
What? What was that?
Right. Okay, we are now ready. Please put your hands together around the world for Team Quizzards.
Hello everyone. Thank you for coming to our graduation. I'm Dan. Over here we've got Stu and Jay as well. We also had a team member that couldn't make it, Jamie, but he also put a lot of work into this, so hello Jamie if you're watching. So as you can see from the beautiful logo designed by Stuart just over here, we have designed Quizzards, a multiplayer learning experience. So yeah, it's a multiplayer game designed for learning environments, but it's not just a game. The learning aspect of it is a multiple choice quiz based on a desired curriculum. Now on the game you're going to see today, it's just going to be maths, but in an ideal world, we'd have a teacher logging in as an admin, and they would decide the curriculum or whatever they want on this revision session, lesson, whatever it's going to be. So yeah, after that quiz, they're going to get taken to a summary page of the quiz itself, and they're going to get a score. They're going to know which questions they got right, which they got wrong, so they know what they're going to improve on and yeah, what they need to put more work into. But more importantly for the game, they're going to see how well they're going to be able to do in the game, because the quiz affects their health and power in the game. So it just adds that more fun element to it. Yeah, so, and it's more, next we're going to talk about why we built this app. So we've been students for the last few months, of course, and on a previous project we had to learn CSS, and a few of us were quite novices at this, so we had to find a few resources to learn. And one that gave us a great base was a game that revolved around CSS and fighting zombies, and we thought it was a really good way to get the base of something before you delve really deep into it. So with that in mind, we thought something similar would be a great way to encourage people to learn at home outside of the classroom. Yeah, and we thought add a challenge to it. Instead of just making it something that could work locally, we thought let's make this a multiplayer game. So that was one of the biggest challenges we set at the start. And after taking a further look into the gaming industry, we found a large growth in that industry in the last year. So we thought, yeah, let's go for it. We didn't realize how relevant the remote side of it was going to be as schools have closed now. But we thought this would be it would really work to give the students a big lift in between the real formal work that they're going to be doing during this time. Yeah, so we changed gear from the API and CRUD apps that we have been doing in the past. And yeah, we did something a little bit different. Cool, I'll pass you on to Jay, who's going to take you through the demo of the game.
Nice, let's get the show on the road. Cool. So, technical difficulty. Nice. So, oh my God, look at that styling. What has possessed this team to create such an old school stylish looking app? I hear you all scream. Well, what we saw in planning was that it tends to be the simpler games that keep players coming back for more. So we've gone for a retro style, complete with, although not hearable at the moment, maybe thankfully, 8-bit music, which in the unlikely case you want to turn it off, is just up there. And then for now we just have easy login button, which will take you to the introduction page. So this page basically sets out what's going to happen in the game. So first you're going to be entering into a lobby, then you're going to be entering into a quiz round, which basically influences your character's health and spell power. So the more points scored, the better you're going to do. Then the game will begin where you'll battle against other players. So let's begin. To the left you can see all online players, and to the right is a live message board where all players can speak very nicely to one another with no swearing because we don't yet have a filter in place. Then once you're finished complimenting your rivals and are ready to hash it out, select join game to be sent to the quiz. Cool, so here we can see our time bar, we can see our score, we can see the current question and our potential answers. There's a live response of if your answer is correct or not, which adds or subtracts from your score. We know taking away a point if you get it wrong is a bit tight, but it stops people from spamming the button, just getting like world's highest score ever. Oh, snuck a nice 57 in there at the end. Oh, and a 33. Go on, Dan. Top score. 11. Nice. That's a big 8, that. Lucky number 8. So you're then taken to the results screen where you can see what you've done right and what you've not, and your score as well. And here we have it, the piece de la resistance. Here you can see your character, you can see your health up there, you can move around on this map that Stu's created, and you can also see, there's Sarah. Go on, Dan, get her. Dan's just taking it easy at the moment. Oh, look. Come on. Gosh, Sarah's got a shield going. I know everyone watching at the moment is on the edge of their seats as to who's going to win this. It's a tight one, yeah. It's actually. I tell you what, Sarah, for a first-time player, you're doing very well. Sarah's out of the running. It's now down to Dan and... Who else is playing, sorry? Oh, Nick, go on. There we go. It's close. It's a close one. Oh. Oh. Unfortunately, Dan has been banished to the Shadow Realm, and Nick is our winner. So what we come to at the end here is just a results page, and if you want another crack at it and you want to return to the lobby, press the button to return the cycle. So hope you enjoyed that, and if you're wondering how we did it, here is Stu to run us through that.
Thanks all, and thank you for our volunteers for helping us out there. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed putting it all together. If you go to the slides, Dan, and I'll talk you through the tech stack that we used for this. Right, so I'll start on the left-hand side. We went for a rather unusual hybrid approach to our tech stack. So we've used a single-page application. It's made in React, but we've melded that with a tool called Phaser, which is a tool we've never used before. It's not something that we're introduced to on the course. It's a rendering engine for HTML. It's written in JavaScript, but it's a fundamentally different framework to what we've worked with before. So it was a real learning experience to pick this up and try and get something working with that. You'll notice that there was a lot of kind of retro styling, very blocky buttons and containers that were in use throughout. We used style components to manage our CSS and keep everything nicely laid out and efficient so that we could reuse things. And you'll notice here that we've actually got Phaser on here twice. We've got something on the front end and something on the back end. So that was something that came out in our initial design work that we did, was the architecture of how to build a game. It's purely rendering, it's purely listening to commands. The actual game is running on the server itself. So we're not rendering anything, it's headless, but it's all the game processing, all the, whether you've fired, whether you've been hit, whether you've been banished, whether you've won, all of these things are happening on the server side. And we're then using socket IO to pass that information back to the client 60 times a second so that they can then update what's going on their screen. So this was quite a novel architecture for us. There was a lot for us to learn, and we encountered a number of challenges in that. I think the first one that we did was challenge we found was just purely the agile development process. We had a lot to learn, and with these new tools, it was really important that we were all working as a team to really succeed on this. One of the first things we did, in order to ensure that we have a working demo, demonstrable here for you today, we actually did 2 sprints of a week long each. So the first sprint was purely the minimum viable product. It was pretty ugly, but it worked. And then the second sprint, we sat down and we went through our user story again and really started to prioritize what we should look at for that second sprint. And that kind of iterative approach really helped us to put together a working solution. Other things that were quite challenging were the GitHub and the version control system that we had to get involved in. A lot of our architecture was split across the server and client and needed to be updated in tandem. And so it was really important that we merged things correctly, that we adhered to best practice so that we weren't overwriting each other's changes all the time. And something else that really helped us was design, documentation, and architecting things before we actually started writing any code. And I know that sounds really boring, but it was really, really helpful for us to make good progress on this. In terms of the socket IO messages that were going back and forward between the client and server, we had about 100 different types of messages. So it was really important that this was documented very well, that both the server side and the client side teams knew, even things as simple as the naming conventions that were going on back and forth, so that we weren't, again, overwriting each other's work and everything worked first time when we tried it. Another thing we had to learn was simply how to make a game. We've never done a game before. We've worked on very different architectures to this. And the process of making a game had to be learned from scratch. Not only the tools, such as Phaser, but how it's architected, such as things like the authoritative server model that we used. So again, that was a big learning experience for us. And the final thing that was really challenging was this integration between Phaser and React. We used them in tandem on the front end, and they're not really designed to work together as well. So it was a real challenge to get them working well together and passing information specifically between the 2 applications. But we did quite well. The way that we came about that was by spiking technology early and identifying the problems early in our development cycle as well. So we spent a good few days at the start trying different libraries, trying different components to see what would work and how to get that information flowing correctly. And the results you see before you, it worked out pretty well. Right, so thank you very much. We've got plenty more to talk about, but if you have any more questions, we're happy to take them. We showed a local version running now. We do actually have a remote online version available of the game that you're happy to have a go at playing if you want, but we would ask you to wait until 5 o'clock. We're going to set up the server and make sure everything's running smoothly for you then. So at 5 o'clock, knock yourself out, have a go at playing the game, quizzes.netlify.com. And yeah, happy to take any questions. Thank you much for listening.
Amazing. I don't know about you lot, but I was transported back to the 1980s then and blown away, mesmerised. I don't think we've had a game quite like that ever built in a Northcoders project. So you should be, incredibly proud of yourself, not just for what you've achieved, but also the circumstances of what we've all had to go through in this last couple of weeks. So well done. We will, since we do have a bit of a studio audience, i.e. the other teams, and a couple of our tutors in the room, I'm going to start with the room. Any questions? I'm looking at you, Shaq. Yeah!
So you mentioned already that you actually designed your architecture before you began writing any code. How did you go about researching how to design software architecture?
Do you want me to? Yeah. So I think the thing that really caught us out was during our spiking, we went and we tried to build a game. Single player, fine, no problems. But as soon as we started to make a multiplayer game as we expected it to work, so client-side authoritative, so you press a button and you move, we were getting problems with lag between the players, who was the single source of truth for what we were doing. So it kind of it struck this question in our minds, what is the right way of doing this? Yeah, and so we started to research how actual games do it, which is how we came across server-side authoritative architecture.
Amazing. I mean, I've got a comment from a young lady called Isla Rathbone. Recognise the surname? Anyone? 6-year-old daughter of Johnny. So, saying, I wish I could play this at home. And just loads of similar messages. Hell yeah, whooper seems to have been a quite common one. Katie Rabbi, absolutely amazing project. Ian. Our Ian Ranasinger. This could be a viable project. It looks cool, it's functional, and it has a real use case. Have you thought about getting in touch with schools?
Well, I guess it's definitely something we could look into in the future. I mean, there's a lot of work that we still want to put into the product. We'd want to set up a login for teachers and for students, so students can kind of record their results across different subjects, and teachers can set up different rooms. So maybe once that is put in place, yeah, sure, we'd definitely kind of look into that to see if it was marketable.
Yeah, another part on that, we thought like the teacher tracking the student was such a huge part of it. We really did have to prioritize on those 2 sprints. We knew what we had to do. We didn't add anything that didn't need to be done into those sprints until the very end, yeah.
Cool, brilliant. Got a question from Wing Ung. How much time was allocated creating the design and the look of the game?
I'll start with that. Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, we just used sort of default sprites, default textures. It really was more towards the end when we'd got that minimum viable product. Yeah. Do you want to say anything?
Sure, yeah. I'd say that it was a very much iterative process, that we started off, as Dan says, with just using programmer art for everything, just making sure that we had a box that could move around the screen and you could see it on other clients as well. And then, we made one change. We changed the graphic of the player, and we kept on playing around with it. And then we changed the graphic for the background. But then the player looked a bit rubbish compared to the background, so it was kind of an iteration process where we just improved one piece at a time, and then we had to kind of cycle back to the start to make everything look good as well. But we could spend a lot of time going around and making this look better and functioning better, we think.
Fantastic. I think we're all a little bit blown away, a bit shell-shocked to the amazingness of your app. We will indeed share the link after the final team, but for once around the world in the room, one final round of applause for Quizzards! And we will be back just in one moment with the final team. Just bear with us 1 minute. Okay, welcome back everyone, and for the final act of today's proceedings, I give you pedals!
Hi everybody, we're Team Pedals, and today we're going to be presenting our final project to you all. I'm Steph, this is Caitlin, Neil and Nick, and our teammate Anna couldn't be here with us today, but she's contributed a lot to this project as well. So to start off, I'm going to talk us through the inspiration and idea behind our app. Then we'll do a demo, then we're going to run through our tech stack, challenges and the development. So what is Pedals? Pedals is a web app where users can draw and plan their own cycle routes. The initial idea was brought up when Caitlin pointed out in our brainstorming that there aren't many apps where cyclists can plan their routes when they won't be optimised to a quicker route and we don't have to travel down set roads. So for cyclists, this obviously isn't ideal. It's not about the quickest route from A to B, but the route they take to get there. So we wanted to really build on this idea and make it a more interactive experience for users and also make it a bit social as well. So to do this, we allow users to pin attractions, warnings and food and drink recommendations along the route. They can then save this, share this with others, and they're also able to access other people's routes and review these as well. So next, Nick is going to take us through a demo of our app.
Thank you. Cheers, Steph. Okay, so we start off and we've got the home page where it's got all the instructions on how to use the app. And then if you click Get Started, it goes to the login page where we can log in as not Jess Jelly. Didn't see that coming, did you? And then we head over to the Draw Route page, and in the top left, we've got the controls. It uses current location to find the location, and then over to the right, it's got the distance and the elevation and other stats there, which you can see changing as we draw the route. And then if we want, we can pin any attractions or warnings on there, any food or drink places. In this case, we're just going to put a warning down: beware of the angry geese screaming at you whilst you're on the canal. And then we can come along with any, if we want to put the route type in there, and then the route name and description, and then we can save the route so that other people can view it. Then we can check out the different route categories. So if we go on that, and there's a sort by function, and we can look at the static images on the page, and then each card has a sort of route information on there. We pick one that we like. And then over to the right, you can see the elevation graph, which shows, like, as it goes along, the change in elevation. We've got the total elevation change. We've got any attractions and warnings on there. We can leave a review if we like, good or bad. This one's a fantastic route, so we're going to leave a good review, obviously. And then if we really particularly like the route, we can save it to our favourites. And then if we head over to the profile page, it's got any routes that we've drawn and any favoured routes that we've decided to save in there as well. And that is our app. I'm going to pass you to Caitlin, who's going to talk about the tech stack that we used.
Thank you, Nick. So for our back end, we built this using JavaScript and Express. We had a lot of experience with this throughout the course, so we knew what we were working with there. It really allowed us to get our back end up and running quickly so we could focus on the front end. We also used MongoDB for our database. We chose a NoSQL database because we knew that the map data would be in GeoJSON format. So it allowed us to, we didn't have to structure the data that we put in, and we kind of, especially when we didn't know exactly what our front end data was going to look like, it kind of allowed us to get our back end up and running, and then we could work on focusing on the front end. We also used Mongoose and MongoDB Atlas to access the database and to host the database, mainly because these were built specifically for MongoDB. We then use JSON Web Tokens and bcrypt for authentication. They gave us the necessary level of security that we needed for our app, given the data that we were storing. We then hosted our backend on Heroku. For our front end, we used React.js. Again, we had experience with this. We had a lot of ideas of functionality that we really wanted to implement. So we thought if we went with this, we could focus on getting all this, all the functionality in place. For our map drawing, we used Mapbox. We spiked a few different things, but we tried Google Maps and Leaflet, but we found that the docs were really good for Mapbox. There were a lot of usage for it. It also allowed us, they had APIs like for the static images and for the elevation as well. And on top of that, the draw functionality was really good, and we were able to be really flexible with that. We used Turf for for calculating the distances of the routes, and throughout we used Git for version control, and then we hosted our final product on Netlify. Now I'll just pass you over to Neil, who's going to tell you a little bit about the challenges that we faced.
So, as a location-based service, our web app is heavily reliant on using an API. The beginning of our project and our first obstacle was learning to work with Mapbox API. We quickly ran into multiple request errors, and not being able to view the structure of the database made it more difficult to pinpoint errors. We wouldn't have a solid database to start on without being able to request the necessary data, and in order to deal with this, we had 3 people looking into the formats which the API accepts, such as GeoJSON. So we decided to use a NoSQL database, which was better suited for our data, but this also meant learning a new technology. This was more of a challenge in terms of time. In order to continue working on our front end, we had to make sure our database was functional. Also, to speed up the process, we implemented paired programming, which helped with future backend related issues, as we have more members who understand and can help solve it. And for our final challenge, as expected, combining all of our code. On our initial merge, we had multiple conflicts, but since we have made sure to merge regularly and source out smaller components to be worked on individually, which helped significantly reducing conflict, and since we haven't had any major issues. I'll pass it back to Steph, who will talk a bit more about development.
So looking at our daily practices, as we've previously mentioned, we spent a good portion of our time at the beginning of the project spiking. So we wanted to make sure that both MongoDB and Mapbox were suitable for what we wanted to do, and that they also worked well with our other tech choices. So it was really important we spent that time doing that. Paired programming also played a massive part of our project. It was really important that we worked together, and as well, working on both the front and the back end in pairs meant that if another person hadn't worked perhaps on the back end for a few days, we would catch each other up on what we were doing, so there was no confusion on the code. Mob programming was also really important for us at the start of the project with Mapbox. None of us had ever used it before, so we spent probably around a day looking just at Mapbox, and we sat around working on that together before we branched off onto the project. We've also put a couple of images of our Kanban board. So we broke the whole task down into user stories. The blue tickets were for essential tasks, orange for like to have, and the pink were some of our back end endpoints. And to use the Kanban board, we had twice daily stand-ups. So in the morning, we met up and we delegate tasks to each person. And then in the afternoon, we found it really helpful to meet up again, discuss what we'd done in the morning, if there were any issues, and maybe if we need to swap around. We've also mentioned about Git for version control, and it was really important. We found quite early that we sorted out communication in terms of using Git. We came into some quite big merge conflicts, so that was a really good learning curve, and then on we made sure we communicated properly using Git. And then finally, if we had extra time to work on the app, we would really love to develop a mobile app, as it would be great for users to have an app on their device where they could access the saved routes. Another thing we'd like to implement would be GPS. We did look into directions, but one major issue we kept finding was all of the directions were optimized routes, which is exactly what we didn't want, and the whole reason why we built the app. So we'll definitely need to look at that in the future. And then finally, if we can give our users any additional stats about the route, that would be perfect, like estimated time to complete the cycle or terrain, just because the people using it would like as much information as possible about the routes. So that has been our app Pedals. Thank you all for listening, and does anyone have any questions?
Amazing. I mean, we've got so many comments on here about the design, about the amount of people that we use it. Paul Rogerson says, get it on Kickstarter. Honestly, it's beautifully... All three projects today have created such beautiful apps and such useful apps, such fun apps. We'll start with the room. Who's going to put that? Oh, there's a surprise. Shaq, question 1.
So at this point now that you don't need to worry about rapid prototyping, would you still use a NoSQL database, and if so, why?
I think one of the difficulties we had with using NoSQL was when we was doing the ratings. So we couldn't have the relationship between the ratings and the routes, which meant that for example, when we had the route cards, we wanted to have an indication of the rating on those, but we would have to make a huge request for all of the ratings for each of those routes, which was just a lot of requests for one page. So I think that's something definitely where we could have used an SQL database, and that would have really helped out there.
I'm going to give the folk of the internet a moment to think about a question they might want to compose to you by asking you on that theme of databases. So we used to teach MongoDB at Northcoders, and we don't anymore. We just leave you with the MySQL, the PostgreSQL database. We teach you. What was it like learning a NoSQL database? Like Mongo.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was different. It was a new tech for us, so that was difficult, especially at first. It took us a bit to get going, but I personally thought that once we got into it, that it was easier to use than what we'd used previously. I don't know whether you lot agree with that, but that was my personal view.
Yeah, I think we found using Mongoose as well was really useful. The docs were really clear, and once we'd got the database seeding, that kind of part of it was really quick. So I think we found that bit quite easy to work with.
Okay, any more questions in the room? I've got a question from WhatsApp, actually. Can people send in their own routes?
The site is live, so you can log in and you can create an account. We can send out the link for that, and then you can create your own routes and see them and favorite them. Yeah, they can.
Fantastic. And I guess on a similar theme, can you create directions based on a route?
That is something that we tried and we looked into, and we kind of almost had, but all the APIs we use would just give the optimal route, which wasn't what we wanted. We wanted it to kind of take you wherever you wanted to go. So we decided just to leave that out because they weren't really very useful.
Okay, but that's something you might be able to add in the future?
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, look, I'll let you go and read these beautiful comments. We'll leave you with Indy Bish. Very nice, Caitlin, very nice. Well done, Pedals. Final round of applause for the final team today, Pedals! So we come to the end of what has been an incredibly hard week for everybody, and I guess I want to start by saying thank you so much for the project teams for bearing with us. As I said at the start of this presentation, the fact that you've created such amazing apps in the face of everything that's gone on is real testament to each and every one of you, so thank you so much. I also want to thank all the students that can't be with us today in person, but thank you for your comments, thank you for tuning in, but also thank you for kind of being so humble and so graceful at the things we've asked you to do this week, switching at the drop of a hat from coming into this campus every day and kind of doing it remotely, as we forced the Manchester campus to do that trial day last Friday a week ago, and then actually just going for it on Tuesday. It's It's been wonderful to kind of feel your comments, the support you've given us, and hopefully you've really appreciated the amount of work that the third set of people I'm going to thank are the team here at Northcoders who have really gone above and beyond. They've worked through the hours into the night. I got a message from James, our videographer, with a video that he sent me at 11:30 last night, and this just goes to show how hard everyone here at Northcoders works to try and make this such a great experience for everyone involved, for the students on the course, for the graduates, for the hiring partners. We know we're in an uncertain world. We know that you know, we know the one thing we know is that there are no knowns, right? And we are going to support each and every one of you as hard as we can with our partners. I know that we've had messages of support from our hiring partners. As Josh has already said, we've got so much set up. We've got so much expertise. Please lean on us if you need us, and please help us where you can, because we need that as well. So, draw to the end of what is a really difficult time. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you in some way, shape or form again in 3 weeks. Have a brilliant weekend, everyone. Thank you. Oh yeah, that quizzes link will be shared shortly.